The official website for our guest this evening says it all. Leland is the only person drafted into the National Football League to have flown in space. It's a statement that speaks to a career and to a vast body of experiences that have taken him from the gridiron to the halls of NASA as an engineer and administrator and beyond. And when I say beyond, I mean 250 miles above the Earth beyond. He was born in Lynchburg, Virginia, where he attended Heritage High School before going on to the University of Richmond on a football scholarship. There he played wide receiver for the Spiders and earned his bachelor's degree in chemistry. He was drafted by the Detroit Lions in 1986, but a hamstring injury in training camp helped force an early end to his playing career. In 1991, he received his master's degree in materials science engineering from the University of Virginia. During this time, he worked at NASA Langley Research Center in the area of non-destructive testing, creating optical fiber sensors for measuring damage in aerospace vehicles, resulting in publications in numerous scientific journals, as well as a job leading the vehicle health monitoring team for the NASA Lockheed Martin X-33 reusable launch vehicle program. He was selected to be an astronaut in 1998 and has logged more than 565 hours in space, including 2 missions to the International Space Station aboard the Space Shuttle Atlantis as a mission specialist in 2008 and 2009. Since then, he was appointed the head of NASA Education and served as the co-chair on the White House's Federal Coordination in Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics, or STEM, Education Task Force, developing the nation's 5-year STEM education plan. He was the United States representative and chair of the International Space Education Board, a global collaboration on learning about space. When he's not inspiring the next generation of explorers to pursue STEM careers, he's pursuing his hobbies as a photographer, a musician, and a writer. His new book, Chasing Space, an astronaut's story of grit, grace, and second chances, came out last week, as well as the Young Readers Edition, which is available in the Children and Teens department here. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is an honor and a privilege for me to introduce Mr. Leland Melvin.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. Wow. This is like really my first book signing, and I'm so blown away from my friends and family and colleagues and all the people that are here. But I've always thought about maybe writing a book one day, but I didn't really know the process or the things that were going to happen in this whole process. And I think it was in 2001, April of 2001, my parents had a 35th wedding anniversary in Lynchburg, Virginia. And I was sitting in the car with my cousin Phyllis and a friend of hers named Jeanette Suarez. And this is all in the book if you've read the book. But this is kind of when my life changed in a really dramatic way. Phyllis was a cousin from North Carolina. Her friend was this person who had a message for me. And I didn't know her. I just met her. She said, "Leland, something's going to happen to you." She said, "No one's going to know why this happened." She said, "You'll be healed of this thing, and then you will fly in space and share this story with the world." I'm like, okay. Thank you for that information. Take that under advisement. I had just come back from Russia. I was in Russia for 2 years working with the first crew that went to the International Space Station. So Bill Shepard, Yuri Gudzinko, Sergei Krikalev. I was their crew support astronaut. So I was the person who was like cooking, doing the laundry, helping them get ready to fly in space. And for those of you who don't know this, but 99% of the time, astronauts are supporting other people, other missions, other things. We fly in space 1%, probably 0.01% that we fly in space. So this service, this piece that we do to help others get ready was something that I was told that, you're not going to fly that often, but you're going to help other people more than you fly. So that was in 2000. They launched in November of 2000. I came back. I stayed over there in December. We helped them with some communication stuff. I came home in January, and now it's time for me to train. So I was in line to do my first EVA training, the extravehicular activity training, the big white Michelin Man looking suit, to go down in the water and train to do a spacewalk. In this suit, there's this little pad, a styrofoam block called a Valsalva pad. It's about that big, and it gets velcroed into the helmet so that you can actually press your nose against it to clear your ears. Well, this Jeanette said something's going to happen to you. No one's going to know why this happened, and you will be healed and you will fly in space. So during this training event, I'm going down in this cavernous pool, 6 million gallon pool, and I noticed that this pad is not in my helmet. And I'm the kind of person that, as I dive and stuff, I need to clear my ears. I press my nose. How many of you have to press your nose to clear your ears? Okay, some of you can do this jaw maneuver thing and pop your ears. Well, I can't do that. So I'm frantically moving my jaw when I realize this pad is not in my helmet. And we go down about 10 feet. I tell the test director to turn the volume up. Well, I tell the test director the pad is not there. And then he says, don't hurt yourself. And, I said, well, I'm going to try to keep going because there are probably 200 people supporting this training run. And my friend Danny Olivas, he's one of my classmates, he's on the other side, and he's already down at the bottom of the pool ready to start his training. So I'm not going to, hold him up. And I've been waiting for 2 years, almost probably 3 years, to do this training because this training is the gateway to getting a flight assignment quickly. And the two of us were going to probably get, assigned pretty quickly if we demonstrated, we could do this type of training. At 20 feet, I tell the test director to turn the volume up in the headset. And I hear nothing but static and kind of white noise. And so they rush me out. They get me on the deck. They pop my helmet off. And the doctor walks over to me, and how many people have read the book? So you know all this stuff. So you could,
nice.
Come on up here. You can probably tell this to everyone. So the doctor, he's talking to me, but I don't hear anything coming out of his mouth. And he walks over to me, and he touches my right ear with his finger. And he pulls his finger back and shows me the blood coming out of my ear. And I'm like, okay, we're NASA. We can figure this out. We can make this better. They rush me to the hospital. There's a doctor named Dr. Bobby Alford, who is an ear, nose, and throat doctor, world-renowned. He's one of the best in Houston. They want to go in and do experimental they want to go in and try to find out what happened. And they operate. They go in past the stapes, and they start pressing on these two windows, the oval and circular window. And they thought that there was this something called a perilymph fistula, where the fluid is actually leaking out of your oval or circular window. And they press on it, and everything's intact. And I have this picture in the book, I think, where all the doctors, it's right after the surgery, and all the doctors are just they got their heads down, and they're just like, I don't know what's wrong. And my sister's there. And all the communication that I do while I'm in the hospital after the surgery, they're through these yellow legal pads. And so that's my way I communicate with people. Hey, what's up, man? And I'll see all my friends are here. And so I have this pad, big legal pad, that says, Leland, we couldn't find anything. Your oval and circular windows were fine. We don't know what happened to you. And at that moment, when everyone leaves, I'm trying to figure out, what's going on, and I start watching the movie Good Will Hunting. How many have seen Good Will Hunting? Show of hands. So when Matt Damon, he's a janitor at MIT, and he's sweeping up, and he solves this problem on the board, and when he's kind of like coming back on the subway, there's this music by Danny Elfman that's playing. It's like it's this moment of satisfaction of him, solving this problem that no one can solve. And whenever I used to hear that music, it would inspire me, and it would motivate me. And I realized that I couldn't hear when I watched the video of him sitting in the car, kind of feeling, this euphoria, and me not being able to hear the music. That's when I slammed the laptop shut and started crying. And a friend of mine came in, heard me crying, and came in the hospital room, and she said, well, she didn't say, she wrote, because I couldn't hear what she said, right? Even though I started reading lips a little bit. She wrote, remember what Jeanette said. Something's going to happen to you. You'll be healed of it. You will fly in space. This will be your testimony you share with the world. And at that moment, I had this sense of, okay, this is going to be okay. We're going to get through this. You know, people are helping me. They're looking after me, my family. Everyone's, you know, really, really trying to help. But I can't hear a bomb drop. I'm still completely deaf. Slowly, my hearing starts coming back. I'm still hearing impaired in my left ear. You know, so when I'm in an environment like this and all of you are talking, I will probably look at your lips and I'll probably focus more so I can really understand what's going on. But the flight surgeons at NASA said that I would never fly in space because we don't know what happened to you. We don't know exactly what happened. We don't have the smoking gun. So if we did put you on a rocket and sent you to space, would this happen again and have to jeopardize the mission? So they said very emphatically, you will never, ever fly in space. I said, okay. And I then tried to figure out what was my next step at NASA. And that's when I met some of my education friends in here. I came up to Washington, D.C. to work this program called the Educator Astronaut Program. So we were going to hire teachers to become astronauts. And so we were doing it through their students. So what's your name? Rafi? Okay, so we were getting the Rafis of the world to nominate their teachers to be astronauts. And that was in 2003. That started out January of 2003. I'd been here for maybe about, 6 months or so, and getting the team together, starting this program. And then we went on the road to start it off February 1st of 2003. Many of you know what happened. We lost Space Shuttle Columbia. And I was actually driving from D.C. back to Lynchburg. My parents still live in Lynchburg, and I was driving home to see them. And the head of NASA at the time, Medina Lawston, who you guys know very well, she called me on my cell phone, and she said, Leland, the orbiter is late. The shuttle is late. And, you know, when we land, we have no fuel left, so it's a glider coming in, and it's pretty accurate. The countdown clock gets to 0, and the bird should be on the ground. The countdown clock was now counting up. And I said, well, how late is it? And she said, well, it's late. And so I turned around. I was going down. I think I was on 66, going to 29 to go home. Turned around and came back. And everyone at NASA headquarters was assembling this team of people trying to figure out what happened. But as astronauts, the first thing that we do is we take care of our families. And so at that point, I was told to drive out to Washington, Virginia, where David Brown, he was a mission specialist on that flight. That's where his parents lived, up top of Browns Mountain. I drove out there. It was nighttime. There were satellite trucks on the side of the road. A state trooper was blocking entrance to the mountain because a reporter had acted as a florist to get up there to get the story. And you know, it just kind of bum rushed up to get this story. So they let me through. I walked in the house, and I'll never forget this moment. It was very transformative. I'm going there to console two parents who have just lost their son in such a horrific, tragic way. And I walk in and I hug David's mom, Dottie, and we're both crying. His father, Judge Brown, he's in a wheelchair. I go over to hug him, and he says something to me that just galvanized my spirit to make a difference. And again, I'm not flying because I'm still medically disqualified. He said, my son is gone. There is nothing you can do to bring him back. But the biggest tragedy would be if we don't continue to fly in space to honor them by carrying on their legacy. He's already thinking about the legacy of his son. And then we start crying. And I stay there, I think, overnight, and we're just, trying to figure this thing out. And so honor the legacy by flying, by continuing to fly. And the doctors have told me, you're never going to fly. So I'm trying to figure out how am I going to honor the legacy? Because his father, Judge Brown, just told me this thing that just really impacted me. And over the next few months, we fly in the NASA airplane to the different memorial services around the country. We're taking off and landing. And the head of all the flight surgeons, Dr. Rich Williams, he's sitting beside me on every flight. And I didn't even think about that. He's just sitting there and he's taking notes. And we take off and we land and I squeeze my nose and clear my ears. And so now it's about May, the middle of May, and the Educator Astronaut program is wrapping up at headquarters. We're about to send all of the applicants down to Houston for them to, go through the astronaut selection process. And so my work in DC's done. I'm going back to Houston the next day. And Dr. Rich Williams calls me in his office and says, Leland, he says, I've been watching what you've been doing. I've been watching you clear your ears. I believe in you. And he signs me a waiver to fly in space. And so the moral of that story for the Rafis and the kids in here is that you never know what's going to happen, but you always, always have to keep going and believe in yourself. And sometimes when you don't believe in yourself, there are other people that do believe in you. And I've always, throughout this book, throughout my life, I've had people that have believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. It started out at a very early age. And some of the people in this room are part of that community that fuel my curiosity, that help me, get through different things. And, this moment is kind of like a crossroads in my life as an astronaut. Without this piece of paper written by the chief flight surgeon, I would have never flown in space. And then this prophecy from this woman, Jeanette, who I never had met before, she said these words to me, and that also, gave me that hope. So that's kind of really what this book is about. It's about, the little engine that could. I think I can, right? Curious George. Rafi, have you read Curious George? Okay. You like Curious George? Sort of. Okay. Well, he was my guy. Okay. Maybe you need to read it again. but having this spirit of curiosity and exploration and having it instilled in you at a very early age is something that was given to me through my community, through my parents. And I'll never forget the day that my father, he was a school teacher in Lynchburg, he drove this. And my dad did all these different jobs. He was a school teacher, he played in a band, he did all these different things to make money, to give me my piano lessons and give me my clarinet lessons, violin lessons, all these lessons and things. He worked hard so that I could get these things. But the day that he drove a Merita bread truck into our driveway was the day that I said, okay, this is enough. You're going to be a bread delivery man now? What's the deal here? And this is when I learned about vision. The bread truck drove in, we got in it, we looked at it, it smelled like bread still. And he said, this is our camper. And I said, no, it's not, it's a bread truck. It says Merita bread and rolls on the side of it. And I didn't have a vision, but he did. He was always doing things on the cheap, to take care of his family. And this bread truck cost $500. And over that summer, I became an engineer. I helped rewire the truck electrically. I built bunk beds that flipped down from the side of the truck that my sister and I slept in. We had sometimes roll out of the beds, but but over this summer, I learned what engineering and science was about, and I also learned what it meant to have a vision for something, to have this thing being converted and being repurposed for something else. And it wasn't still, though, until we painted Merita bread and rolls off the truck that I realized that it was our camper. And we spent countless summers driving across the country in this bread truck that was now a camper. And so, these lessons of, the book is Chasing Space, an astronaut story of grit, grace, and second chances. The grit I was always seeing that through my mom and dad. And the other most beautiful thing about my parents was that, they were both school teachers in Lynchburg, Virginia for over 30 plus years. And I retired from NASA. My friends here, my NASA friends, retired in 2014 to move back home to be with my father. He wasn't doing well. And I got home on a Sunday, and my dad and I had this incredible conversation, just the most beautiful conversation. Actually, it was kind of one of these conversations where we kind of flipped the script, you know, because like when I was a kid, you know, Daddy, why don't you take a bath? I don't stink. I don't need a bath. And then I'm talking to him. It's like, well, I don't need a bath. I said, tonight's your bath night, you know. I said, well, did your mother tell you need a bath? I don't need a bath. Come on. I don't stink. Come on. You know. Having this conversation, and it was beautiful, you know. And then the next day he was gone. And I was trying to figure out, you know, my life as an astronaut, life as associate administrator for education, all these 24 years working with NASA, that identity was gone because I had retired from it. I'd moved from DC, moved back home. And the reason I moved home was to be with my dad. And he's now gone. So I had to, you know, that was a, you know, moment of really trying to dig deep and understand, you know, the purpose and why I'm here. And I've been told that Mark Twain has always said that the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you figure out why. You know, why were we born? What is our purpose? And then I was told by my editor that when I had Mark Twain in there, they said Mark Twain didn't really say that, you know. So if you look in the book, it's no Mark Twain reference in there. But I still use Mark Twain because that sounds kind of cool, I think. But, you know, figuring that why out. And as a society in this day and age with all the things that are going on, you know, all of us collectively figuring out why we're here to help impact the Rothies and the people that are here. They're going to be the explorers that help, you know, change our planet for the positive. That's why I wrote this book. And it's the Jeanette, you know, you will share your story. It's the family, community not giving up, believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. And it's a journey of STEAM education, science, technology, engineering, the arts, and mathematics. I grew up not even knowing what STEM was or STEAM was, but I was living it every day with piano lessons and building bicycles and bread trucks and all these different things. And I think, you know, one of the things that's going to help us as a civilization is when we realize that we're really on this really small little blue marble together, technically working together as one civilization. Granted that we don't always see this happening every day, but from the vantage point of the International Space Station, when I look out over Virginia and I see my hometown from space, it's only 240 miles up, the distance from DC to New York. Not that far, really. Going around the planet every 90 minutes, seeing a sunrise and a sunset every 45 minutes. Doing this with people we used to fight against. I was there with the Russians and the Germans. And having these moments where I'm flying over Virginia, 5 minutes later we're over Paris, where Leo Eilhartz is one of my crewmates. He's looking down, hey, my mom's probably eating down there too. And in Russia, you're there in like a couple of minutes. It shows you how connected we are as a people. And then flying over Afghanistan and looking down and seeing how beautiful it is, but knowing what's happening down there, you know, Aleppo, all these places of unrest and fighting and, you know, these things going on. But from that vantage point, it's simply stunning. And so I'm going to try to get you all signed up, you know, for a SpaceX mission. Like, I've got some coupons up here, you know, when I'm signing your books, you know, you might be the lucky one to get the SpaceX ride. But if you get an opportunity, and whether it's through VR or whatever the experience you have to get to see this, it fundamentally, cognitively changes you as a person to make you want to do better when you see our planet from that vantage point. And on my first mission in 2008, I was up there with Dr. Peggy Whitson, who was the first female commander of the space station. So for the young ladies in here, any young ladies in here? Okay. I just want to tell you that experiencing Peggy running the show, large and in charge, with all of these men, was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And to have that respect and that excellence was remarkable. And so she's up there now. I talked to her, I guess it was maybe 3 months ago. She's going to be the longest running U.S. astronaut in space, 650 days. Yeah. And I think she's going to have the length record, but also the number of spacewalks record, the length of hours in spacewalks too. They just did one, I think, the other day for a couple hours to fix some stuff. But another thing that's in the book, I think I call it the space smorgasbord, where where we had finished installing the Columbus laboratory. That was my job, to install this Columbus laboratory. And when I first got the assignment, there was like maybe 20 German flight controllers in Houston. And they were there working together with the flight directors and people to make sure that everything was in play, the procedures and everything was in play to install this European Space Agency Columbus laboratory. And so they had found out that I was now assigned to be the robotic arm operator to install their baby. And they've been waiting 10 years to install this module. And all their job security depended on me installing it properly. So I walk into this room, and there are these 20 guys, and they're like high-fiving me and chest bumping me, and like, you're gonna install our baby, and we've been waiting all this time. And then as I start to walk out of the room, this one guy looks at me and he says, "Mr. Melvin, we've been waiting 10 years. Don't screw it up." And so in space, my hand's on the rotational hand controller and the translational hand controller, and I've now grappled the Columbus laboratory, and I'm unberthing it from the payload bay of the space shuttle. So it's coming up out of the payload bay. And now we're starting to turn it and position it to install it to the side of the space station. It's getting closer and closer and closer. The motion stops, and I'm still pulling the hand controller. And in the back of my mind, I hear this, "Don't screw it up." So what had happened, there are these 4 ready-to-latch indicators that are spring-loaded, and they tell you basically the orientation. So if you're like this, you'll see on the computer monitor that these 2 are engaged, but these 2 are not. So you need to pitch down a little bit, or if it's like this, you need to pitch up a little bit, or whatever orientation you need to get all 4, connected at the same time. So Peggy Whitson, she's watching all this, kind of like floating behind us, kind of looking. And this motion, and I was moving the hand controller so slowly, I was just trying to get it very, very slowly, that these 4 indicators just stall the motion out. And Peggy said, "Leland, pull." And I pulled one time, all indicators lighted up. It was birth to the space station. All of the people in Germany and Europe were now celebrating. And they weren't saying my name in vain, right? And I'll never forget that moment. That was my major task to do on this mission. That was the primary task, actually. The other was to bring Dan Tani home and to transfer some other things. And I'll never forget the night that we installed Europe's baby. It was when I had this cognitive shift in my head, because Peggy invited us to dinner in the Russian segment. She said, "You guys float over with the rehydrated vegetables, and we'll have the meat." And so, see, all my team has heard this story. You guys are like, "Oh, not that story again," So we float over with this food, and there's Sade playing through the speakers, right? So I think Smooth Operator's playing. And Dan Tani is like kind of floating up. He's like, "Smooth Operator." And people are kind of around the table. There's this table over there. And they've been like heating up these cans of like beef and barley and these different Russian meats. And we come in, swoop down with our vegetables, and we Velcro them to the table. And there's some hot sauce there that's Velcroed to the table. And we're all just about to have this incredible meal. And that's when I look out the window, and I think we're coming over Virginia, or I can kind of see the Virginia area, and I just look around me and see who I'm breaking bread with. And that's when I had this shift of, we gotta take care of this place. We gotta work together. We gotta do better. And after that moment, we did the rest of our task, and I came back home, and it fundamentally changed me, and wanted to help make us a better civilization. And so I hope when you read the book, you see that piece in there, because that's, I think, what every one of us needs to do to make sure that we're doing our part to keep us thriving as a civilization. And so again, these are all little points and pieces in Chasing Space that I want you to hear from my heart as to why I put those things in there. And then kind of the ending of the book is kind of like the future of our little guys and girls, and to make sure that they have the tools that they need to take our places and to be effective. And a lot of that is having access and being able to utilize, the internet. And if they don't have something in school, lots of times in school it's teaching to the test, and so they don't get the hands-on experiential things that I had when I was a kid. And so we have created this website called S.T.E.M, that part of my team is here, and we just kind of celebrated the launch of this, the children's book, but also S.T.E.M at lelandmelvin.com, and go to the menu for S.T.E.M. It tells a story through images, through videos, through the journey, starting with a little skinny kid in Lynchburg, Virginia, who wanted to be Arthur Ashe and not Neil Armstrong, because I saw Arthur Ashe look like me doing these incredible things. I didn't identify with Neil Armstrong, even though everyone wanted to be Neil Armstrong walking on the moon in 1969. And my journey to becoming an astronaut was never one of, I want to be an astronaut. It was people that said, you'd be a good astronaut. And I said, really? Me? I don't see that, But it was kind of meandered onto that. So how's our time? We're good? You want to do some questions now? Anyone have any questions? Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'm Sam Hancock of Emerald Planet TV, and the question is that in the current political and economic environment, is that where it's almost a reactionary, is that we don't want to fail, instead of, as most of America's, we want to win.
Right.
And we want to do the very best that we can, not just for our country, but for the earth.
Right.
So how do we rekindle that to the youth, so they're not seeing as that we want to be fearful of what's out there, but we embrace it, and then we carry forward in the future so that we have another 100 years of
Right.
abundance, instead of being fearful about what we may not have.
Right.
And thank you for being here.
Oh,
and I
thanks.
heard you on radio the other day.
Oh, Science Friday?
Very, very nice job.
Thank you very much. Ira Flato is one of my heroes. So when I went on the show, I'm like, I want Science Friday. He's like, but you're an astronaut. I'm like, but you're Ira Flato.
Very nice job.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So not fearing. I think we, a lot of this, we're looking to our government to fix things. And I know that when I grew up as a child in Lynchburg, Virginia, I wasn't even thinking about government. I was thinking about what the opportunities that my parents gave me and what they instilled in me. And so however we can get back home, and I know that a lot of kids don't have what I had, but we as a community have to instill this sense of can-do spirit, the curiosity, the Curious George piece, curiosity, that we're going to explore and continue to do things. And whatever administration's in office at the time, they have their agendas, they have their policies, they have their things. But I think it's more grassroots where things get done. And, and hopefully that you can engender this type of spirit in the youth, in the groups that need to get these things done, to carry those messages forward. We have to work with our governments, we have to work with the policies, but if enough people are shouting loud enough to say that we need to do these things, and they vote in a particular way, that's where the change happens. We can't be apathetic at home and say we throw our hands up, we have to have a strong voice and lift up our kids and inspire our communities and band together as a community to make the change and make the difference. Oh, okay. All right. Down. Okay. Good question. Thank you. Yes, sir. What's your name and what grade are you in?
My name is Eob, and I am in 3rd grade. And I have two questions. Actually, more like a comment. A sort of question, actually. I have a friend named Kai. He wants to be an engineer at NASA. If there's something you would like, if there's one thing that maybe you would want to say to him, what would that be?
So he wants to be an engineer at NASA.
Yes.
His name is
Kai.
Kai. Okay. So tell Kai that the first thing he needs to do is believe in himself. All right. You got to believe in yourself if you're going to do anything. The other thing is to work very hard and be very disciplined. You know, science and engineering, they're very kind of exacting subjects, and the more that you study it, the more that you learn it, the better you'll be at executing it. So work hard. Tell him to eat his green beans. Okay, got to be healthy, you know, while you're making those decisions, and to have fun and be curious. Okay, got that?
Yes.
Okay.
And another question is, what do you like when you? What is the feeling like? How did you feel being up in space?
How did I feel in space?
Like,
Good question. Good question. When I first got to space, after the 8.5 minutes elapsed, it takes us about 8.5 minutes to get to space, all right, from launch to floating in space. I got there, I was strapped into my seat, and I started seeing things floating around me. Like the pin that I dropped is now floating up, some dust particles, a piece of paper, they're coming up by me, but I'm still strapped in. And right when the engines cut off, because of my, you know, you have this inner ear which tells you, you know, what orientation you're in, that no longer works once you get to space. And so I felt like I was doing a somersault even though I was strapped into my seat. I undid my seatbelt, I pushed off with my back, I floated towards the front seat where Butch Wilmore was sitting, and then I bounced into that one, and then it's like a ping pong ball going back and forth. And then I had to get to work because my job was to take video of the external tank falling back down to the planet. So I started filming that. It went away, and I saw the beauty of our planet, the blues and the greens of the oceans. And then about an hour later, I got sick. I didn't feel sick, but something's like, something's happening here. And I got the bag and blah, and then got back to work. So I felt great. I saw beautiful things. I got sick. I got back to work. We had this great meal, and it was incredible.
thank you. It's such an honor, like listening and speaking to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good question. Any other questions? Any other questions? I can keep talking if you. Is that Mr. Yeah, come on up. Come on up and ask a question. It's my godson. Come on, Micah. What's your question? And Maya, come on up. Both of you come on up. What's your question? Okay, come up here. Yes, sir. What's your question?
What was your dog's name?
What were my dogs' names? One's name was Jake, and one's name was Scout. And Jake is the one on the right, like in my ear. And Scout is like, "What are you doing, man? What are you doing?" Good question, sir. All right. Maya, do you have a question? No questions? You gonna let your brother ask all the questions? Okay. All right. We'll see you guys in a little bit, okay? Good question. All right. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Come on up. Thanks for coming out, everyone. This is really, really inspiring. This is really nice. Yes, sir.
I'm gonna do it right here.
Yeah.
So, first off, hey man.
Hey.
Secondly, so we have this president that's, retracting so many different things about climate change, right? And so this recently, announced thing about France and
Right.
coming back about climate, and then you having so much direct experience about the planet, what do you think about that? And what's your recommendation about that, given what we're dealing with
Right.
today?
So I was at the March for Science. I believe that we have sensors, we have data, we're actually seeing the changes in our environment on a daily basis due to the effects of humans, the effects of cows too, actually. I mean, the methane that cows are producing because of our penchant for red meat, we're devastating fields and fields and fields to grow cows for consumption. And so the combination of methane, the CO2 from cars, all of these things are definitely impacting our planet. If you think about the oceans, we're talking about by 2050 the oceans becoming sterile because of all of the CO2 that's getting absorbed and creating a toxic environment for our wildlife in the oceans. Looking at the planet from that vantage point, I can see, the Amazon burning for deforestation. You can see, I didn't see, because of the timing between the two missions, I didn't see ice shelves, calving and those kind of things. But I mean, I see that indication every day with video, with movies like Chasing Ice and all these documentaries that are, showing us what's happening to our planet. The data doesn't lie.
Right.
The data doesn't lie. So we grassroots, whether it's a grassroots effort, whatever we have to do to.
What do we do?
What can we do?
What do we do?
Wow,
About this
that's a
particular
very good
issue?
question. I mean, if the current administration says that this is our policy, that's the law of the land. There's rogue EPA website. There's a rogue NASA website. There are lots of rogue sites that are actually, keeping the data alive, so that after this administration, things may turn a different way. The administration, who knows how long this is going to last. So I'm hopeful, but again, it's making sure that Micah and Maya know what's going on. It's making sure that Rafi knows. It's making sure that this student that's in high school, the student that's going to college, is going to be at the forefront to be that next engineer that's going to be working for a company to help us figure out how to fix this solution.
Okay.
So
Fair enough.
I don't have the answers.
But you have a perspective.
I have a
so
perspective, yes.
Thank you.
It's happening. I know it's happening.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
There was a picture taken in, come on up. Hey. There's a picture taken in 1968 when it was Apollo 8 went behind the moon and coming back around, we shot this picture of the Earth rising. It was an iconic picture in the 70s that fueled the environmental movement. The EPA started after that picture was taken. And 2018 will be 50 years after that picture was taken. And so I'm working with a group to see if we can try to change that, course correct this ship, because what's going to happen in the next 50 years in 2068? Are we going to have a planet for our kids? And so we all have to, make sure that we are awake and watching and seeing and using our voices and using our votes to make sure we have a 2068 for our kids, which is so important. Okay. Hey.
Hello.
Hey. Good to see you.
I.M. Proctor. And I want to know what you think about diversity in the astronaut corps and thinking about your selection process. And I believe it was a big class taken that year, right?
It was 25 U.S. and 6 internationals.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then thinking about the number of minorities in NASA. And
Right.
do you think that it's getting better, or is there anything we can do to help increase diversity so
Right.
that when astronaut classes come out that there's
Right.
more than just one?
Right. I was one.
You were one, I know. Yeah.
That's a good question. Very good question. I think the movie Hidden Figures has helped let people see the work that's been going on for a very long time at NASA in general, the diversity that we've had at NASA. And I had a chance to see Katherine Johnson about a week and a half ago. I gave her a copy of my book, and she was asking me about Mars. You know, when are we going to get people on Mars? And if you look on the back of the adult book, she wrote a little quote there, and she was just so proud to see a black man, you know, flying in space when she had calculated the trajectories to get, you know, John Glenn going around the planet orbiting to match Yuri Gagarin. I think it's gotten better. I know that in any organization, in any society, there are isms, right? And I think the only way to keep those racism, sexism, whatever the ism is, the only way to break that down is really to break bread with people, to have a conversation, to sit down and talk about, you know, what happened to you in your childhood, what happened to you in your life, and what happened to them. And I think people sometimes are afraid to let people that don't look like them or don't talk like them or don't have the same cultural background as them because they don't feel as comfortable. And so, and I know that we were having those conversations in space. Mm-hmm. So the people that are the people that are making the decisions in the astronaut corps, like I was on the selection board 2 times. So I was ensuring I was doing my part to make sure that the group of people coming in was as diverse, you know, in a number of ways of diversity. So I think it's, you know, it's better, but sometimes the final outcome, you know, and so like we'll bring in this last astronaut class, and you've applied how many times?
Twice.
2 times, okay. So scientists applied 2 times, I applied once and I got in, okay? But at that point, there's so many things that factor in. There's medical, there's diversity from an engineering and scientific standpoint mm-hmm. of the class coming in. There's so many different pieces that are attached to it. But
well, do you think part of that is getting more minorities to apply, so that the numbers in that selection become?
I remember when I applied, how many of you know Charlie Bolden? He was the NASA administrator, the first African American NASA administrator. Flew 4 missions. Actually, was in the first mission to deploy the Hubble Space Telescope. So I was walking down the hall in Washington, D.C. when I was thinking about applying, and I said, Charlie, so, you know, I'm thinking about applying. He said, you can't get in unless you apply. How many people think about becoming an astronaut but never apply?
Yeah.
And so we have to make sure that people follow through with that final piece, because I've heard of a lot of people after The Martian. So 18,000 people applied for this current selection because of The Martian, watching Matt Damon poop and make potatoes from his poop, right? So I'm sure the numbers were risen that were diverse, but then how many of those people actually applied? Yeah. And that's the follow through that we need to make sure that people apply.
Well,
I wasn't going to apply. Someone said, you need to apply. Actually, it wasn't. No. What happened, let me tell you what happened. It's really in the book. So I got this application. This friend of mine said, Thomas Kashingaki, he was a professor at University of Maryland. He said, Leland, you'd be a great astronaut. Handed me the application, working at NASA. I look at it, I set it down. My friend Charlie Camarda, he applies, and he gets in. And I said to myself, if that knucklehead can get in, I can get in too. So it was a little more of a competition, and I applied and I got in. But between that time of him getting in, he flew back to NASA Langley with John Young. How many of you know John Young? Mm-hmm. John Young flew every vehicle known to humans in the space program. He flew STS-1 on Columbia. He walked on the moon. So when John Young tells you that you should apply, I guess you should apply, right? And I applied when he came in and talked to us a little bit. So, but I guess a lot of people don't apply. But more talk about it, but don't follow through. So, you had a follow-up?
Just thank you for being an inspiration.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Next question. Hi.
Hello, Leland. My name is Jahaira Sierra Sastre.
Nice to meet
I
you.
am originally from Puerto Rico.
Uh-huh.
You were the first astronaut that I met back in 2003 when you visited my school.
Were you in Mayagüez?
In Mayagüez.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And I am just here to let you know that this is part of your legacy.
Wow.
I was inspired. By then, I could not go to talk to you because I could not speak English by then.
Right.
And I was inspired to continue grad school. And nowadays, I am a scientist.
Nice.
I am an educator. And we are with you. Cyan and I were part of the first HI-SEAS mission, a Mars analog mission.
Wow.
And we are here with you to inspire. So thank you so much for what you have done. And I am so glad that I can be here and can speak finally with you in English. So thank you.
¿Cómo está? Thank you so much. I mean, and, you know, and that's really what it's about, having, I mean, people coming together as a community, figuring out how to get other people inspired. And I had that, and I mean, that's a testament to my father and my mother, of their legacy of what they did, and I just want to carry that on. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Dylan Moore, and my question is, what inspired you to write the book Chasing Space?
Okay, good question, Dylan. This woman shared this message with me that I'm gonna share this journey with the world, and then also just going through my life and having all these things happen, that it would be best to share that I wasn't an A student. I wasn't perfect at everything I did. I almost went to jail. There was a time when after I graduated from high school, I almost had a run-in with the law and almost was in prison, and some other things that have happened. So, life is sometimes not always perfect, and it's not always easy, but the things in life that are meaningful are worth doing and worth striving for and overcoming those obstacles. And so that's kind of some of the things I wanted to share, and to help inspire you to see my journey and say, hey, I can do this too. If Leland can do it, I can do it, right? If that knucklehead can do it, I can do it, right? But those are some of the reasons why. What grade are you in?
I am in 6th grade.
And what do you want to do when you grow up? Do you know?
I want to be an NBA player.
Okay. Okay. So, are you good at math?
Yes.
So get all your math down so you can count all your money. So that they don't take your money from you and invest it in something that's, learn how to invest your money. But really, make sure that you have your education so that if that NBA career doesn't pan out, my NFL career didn't plan out because I got injured. So always have your education as your backup plan, just in case that doesn't work out. And you can do anything, you can do anything you put your mind to. So good luck on your NBA. You're going to point guard, Steph Curry, kind of?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, good luck. Count that money now. Hey.
Hi, my name is Ben, and I was noticing you were talking about how, you grew up and you saw people like Neil Armstrong walking on the moon, like John Young walking on the moon, and then you actually got to be a part of that program. You served with the shuttle program. Mm-hmm. Now, the shuttle is gone. The only way that we're getting to space is through the Soyuz, and at least for NASA, their plan for putting someone on the moon is in something like the 2030s, and that's quite a ways away. How do you see us without the political incentive that got people like Neil Armstrong on the moon? How do you see us remaining motivated and remaining for the people? Obviously it's not a problem for the passionate scientist community, but for the people who aren't necessarily, passionate about science but are still voters, still decide where our money goes, how do we keep them motivated about the space program so that we can eventually, get to that goal?
Thanks for that question, Ben. I think so we're sending up our astronauts now to space station with the Soyuz, right, in Kazakhstan. But we're also building the Orion vehicle. We're going to have a capability to go up for 45 days, to take crews up for 45 days, and so that's being built right now. I think 2017 or 2018, we're going to do some test runs. One of my classmates, Sonny Williams, will be in the vehicle doing those test runs. I think the one way to really get people to think about ones that aren't into science and not into NASA and all that, not the NASA nerds like me and some of my crew here. Yeah, you're NASA nerds, yes. Is to have stories like this being told about the impact of what NASA has done for people's lives. I have an uncle who was a farmer in Virginia, and he would always tell me while I was working at NASA, he would say, "What good is NASA? What are you guys doing? You're going up there playing in space. You're doing this." I said, "No, we're actually looking at your crops. We're looking at how you can actually rotate your crops to have a better yield from your crops." And so there's all these spin-offs that are happening from NASA that no one really knows about. They only think of astronauts in space and this really expensive space station up there doing all this stuff. But what is the benefit back down to the planet? And so it's more messaging. I mean, if you turn on the television, you have 5,000 channels to look at. And so that message gets, so washed out with all that noise. And, one-on-ones like this, having some of my NASA people here, advocates for sharing the message of space and the future. And, what if a 10-kilometer in diameter asteroid finds its way to our planet and does what it did to the dinosaurs? What do? Let's say we have 5 years. We know it's coming in 5 years. What do? I bet you everyone's going to be focused on save us, NASA. But it takes some type of crisis or something to really get people to wake up to see that there's, impending doom happening. And during the 60s, it was, the Russians, the Sputnik. Sputnik was going around beeping, and people were afraid of, getting killed by the Russians. So what is our new Sputnik moment? What is our new moonshot? And it's the funding is there for NASA to explore. It's like $19.5 billion budget for 2018, minus some for education and earth science, which is appalling, but we're not going to talk about that today. But it's getting that message out. Yeah, good question.
Thank you.
What grade are you in?
I'm in 9th grade.
9th grade. Wow, insightful. And what do you want to be when you grow up?
I'd like to be an astronaut.
Okay. Okay. Well, read the book.
I will. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Vicki Steinwurzel. I'm not a scientist, but I am a technology teacher. I
Okay.
teach kindergarten through 4th how to use technology. I was wondering if there's room for me at NASA, a technology teacher.
There's room for everyone at NASA. Yeah, no. NASA Education, what I ran for 4 years with some of my team here, we have all types of ways to engage and inspire, and it's through technology. It's through, these different ways to engage. And so I don't know what opportunities are available right now with the way that the budgets are coming out for 2018. We haven't seen how the NASA Education budget will pan out, but there's a place for everyone at NASA, definitely. Thanks for coming.
2 more questions.
2 more questions? Okay. Hey, can someone lower the mic for my friend here? So cute. All right. Okay, go ahead. What's your question?
I just wanted to ask you if you want to go to Jupiter.
Okay, so can I flip it back to you? Would you want to go to Jupiter?
Yes.
Why? It's big. What else? It's got a lot going on there. There's a lot of radiation there. We have a craft that's going around Jupiter right now in this really highly elliptical orbit. It swoops in and gets data, and it swoops back out. It's called Juno.
Ooh.
Yeah. So go to the NASA website and take a look and find out what Juno's doing, okay?
Okay.
I think you'll like it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for your question.
Welcome.
All right, Basil. That's a future rocket scientist right there. All right. Okay, our last question. Edmund Joe.
Hi, Leland. Edmund
Hey.
Joe.
Good to
Can
see
you describe for all of us the first 8.5 minutes of your very first mission? What was going through your mind?
Oh, good question. Wow. Let me start with 3.5 hours before the... It'll be quick, though. You get in the vehicle. It's 3.5 hours before, and you are now sitting in the vehicle. You have this chiller hooked up to you, so trying to keep you cool as you're sitting in the seat. All of your, all your notebooks and things, and your flight data file you're looking at, getting it positioned and get ready for the launch. So 3, 2, the main engines light. The main engines ignite, and they tilt the entire stack of the shuttle forward. We call that the twang, like a spring twang. So it comes forward, and then as it lines back up, we have these explosives that are in the bolts that are holding down the entire stack of solid rocket boosters and the external tank. This solid rocket boosters and the external tank are all connected together, hold the shuttle in place. And so those bolts are explosively, broken apart, and now you're going somewhere. Hopefully you're going to space. So we're launching up, and I'm in the back right. I've got a computer here. I'm looking at the computer to make sure that, all the systems and things are working properly. But my head is moving so much that all I can see is green lines on the computer. And we turn a little bit, and now I can look through a mirror on my wrist out the overhead window back down to where my family. So where Curtis and Micah and Maya are sitting, where my friends are sitting. Yeah, I saw you down there. But I can see the plume connected to the ground and know that these people with their spirit are following us up to space. And so 2.5 minutes of solid rocket boosters jettison. The ride smooths out a little bit. We were pulling 3 Gs, so it was kind of laboring to breathe a little bit, and you're on your back, so the Gs are coming through your chest. And so you're having to inhale deeply to breathe. And then you're going through the checks of the systems. I was doing the abort calls, so if we lost an engine, where could we make it? Where Zaragoza, Spain, or these different locations to land the shuttle in case there was an emergency. And then that 8.5 minute mark, we hear MECO, main engine cutoff, and you're now in space. That was my 8.5 minutes.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for coming out. Oh, we have one more question? Okay. So Peggy Miller Williams remembers when I was born in Lynchburg, Virginia. And do you remember we lived in Dr. Johnson's apartments? So can I tell this one really quick story? All right, this will be really quick. So I've always wanted to be Arthur Ashe and not Neil Armstrong. All right. I grew up so when I was born, I was in these apartments on 5th Street in Lynchburg, and they were Dr. Johnson's apartments. They have Johnson on the side. Even to this day, if you drive down 5th Street, you see Johnson on the side. Dr. Johnson lived on Pierce Street. He was a doctor. He was the first black doctor to integrate the hospital where I was born, Lynchburg General Hospital. He was also a tennis coach who taught Arthur Ashe and Althea Gibson. He came from Richmond to train in Lynchburg. This is Pierce Street. We moved from Dr. Johnson's apartments to Pierce Street, and so I was 5 blocks from where this clay court was in Lynchburg, where these 2 stellar athletes were being trained. Also on Pierce Street, there was Anne Spencer of the Harlem Renaissance. She was a poet. Her son was Chauncey Spencer, who was one of the first black aviators to petition Congress to get money to create the Tuskegee Airmen. So I had 3 levels of inspiration that I didn't even know were going on in Lynchburg to help me get to this podium here to talk to you about chasing space. And that was part of the journey of writing this book, to find out the people that had an impact in my life from Lynchburg I didn't even know. So do your history. Go back and find your history. So thanks for coming. Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much.